Hi guys, it's Kelly here, and today's video is going to be using Halloween Friends from Pretty Pink Posh. This is part of their new October 2016 release, and so I was super excited when they asked me to join them to kind of show off the new collection. It's totally adorable. Here I'm just giving myself a marker for where I'm going to stamp my characters. I couldn't find my T-square ruler, so I just used my old school wooden one, like whatever works. Fortunately for me, I have that grid paper, so it was easy to kind of just line it up to make sure it was perfectly straight. I'm going to use intense black ink from Simon Says Stamp to stamp all of my images because it's Copic safe. And then I'm just going to mask as I go. This is going to be a one-layer card. If you've watched any of my other videos, this is probably no surprise to you. I'm using masks that I cut from full stick post-it notes. They work really, really well for me, and the price point isn't too terrible either, so that makes me happy because I'm cheap. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp. I'm not going to mask the ghosts for the first part of this, for the first layer of distress ink, I guess, because I want them to appear to be transparent. So what I'm doing is I'm going in and I'm putting in a little bit of Salty Ocean, a little bit of Seedless Preserves, and a little bit of Wilted Violet in the background. I'm not being scarce with it. I wanted it to show up. I wanted it to look like a nighttime scene. When I first looked at this stamp set, I just really wanted to use all of the characters, and I was trying to think of a way like in which all of these characters would be together. So what I came up with was like if maybe they were in a Halloween play together. So I used a just a circle die. You can use any size that you would like. I picked the medium one that was going to fit my card since it is portrait and not landscape. And then I'm going to go, once all of the ghosts and that circle is masked, I'm going to go in with Chip Sapphire and then black soot just around the edges. And this is going to create like a spotlight effect. So if they were on stage in this play and, you know, like the end of the play, the spotlight's on them. And so I just thought it would be super cute to do it that way. And then my Copic coloring won't be messed up at all because I masked them. So here I'm going to draw in the background, and I knew that I wasn't going to have anything that was too detailed because it's a nighttime scene, and I don't know about any of your high school plays, but our sets were not exactly stellar productions. So I'm just using my lightest color to kind of draw in some trees in the background. This is a great background for Halloween or winter scenes. You could really just incorporate this into a ton of things, not just Halloween, and it's super simple to do. So I just kept drawing them, and here I realized that if I wanted the ghosts to be transparent, then you would be able to see the trees through them. So I went ahead and drew right through it. Looks terrifying, I know, but just do it. It looks super cool at the end, I promise. I'm going in with my second darkest color, and I am going over the same trees, but outside of the spotlight. So I'm stopping wherever that circle starts. And then I used the just the very tip of the marker to kind of outline the ones that were in the spotlight, just to give them a little bit more definition. And then for the next color, which is a little bit darker, I'm adding some shadows into the trees just to give them a little bit of depth. And I'm going to do the same thing with my darkest marker, which is a B99. It's super dark. It's a really good navy. And then I'll work my way kind of back out through that, just kind of blending. You can see it is sped up a little bit, but I really was not being careful. I was moving right along through it because it isn't meant to be something that is so perfect or specific. I did go back in with my lightest marker and just kind of blend in that outline. And then that's going to be it for the background for now. When I was thinking about plays when I was in high school, like you could always, even though there was a glow on the stage, you could still tell that it was, you know, like the old wooden plank stages. And I didn't want to leave this area just completely uncolored. So I just kind of really quickly drew in just some little lines. You would barely be able to see them in a real play anyway if the entire stage was being cast in like that blue hue. I'm going to move on to coloring the little characters. There's this little raccoon who's a robber. He's totally I mean, just, he's really cute. I made him super dark. You would not need to make him nearly this dark. I mean, you color him however you wanted him. But since I was already going for that nighttime scene, I figured I might as well just embrace the darkness and go that way. So I covered him completely in C3. That's going to be my lightest color. And for his actual face, like not his mask, and his hands, I did just do like a C3 and a C5 so that those areas would be lighter. For the parts of him that are going to be black, like his little sweater, the traditional raccoon mask, his little nightcap, and the stripes on his tail, I did go super dark. You will also notice that on his tail, even the areas that were quote unquote light, I went dark. And that's because parts of his tail are outside of that circle, so they would not have that big bright spotlight on them. And we want to color accordingly because we want it to make sense. So when you're shading anything, like even though we masked him so the colors would be true, we need to pay attention to that circle part, so that those colors on the outside of the circle would be darker because they would be set back outside of the spotlight. You can go slow. Like, you don't feel like you have to do it all in one time. When I had been coloring with a friend one time, she said, I've never seen anybody who does it twice like you do. And the reason that I do it twice is because A, I feel like it gives me better blending, but because B, it allows me to get a feel for what the image looks like. So the first time I go over it, I don't add a ton of dark because, I'm going to be honest, I don't want to ruin my image. I know I'm heavy-handed with my darks. I know that it's a flaw that I have, so I try not to do that, and I compensate by doing my coloring twice. Maybe you have a little bit more self-control with your darks and you don't need to do that, then that's totally fine. But I always get a little bit bolder with my color on the second time over because A, I can see how the image looks, and B, I just have a better overall feel for where color needs to go, where there needs to be more shadows or where I need to save that highlight. So that's just what works for me, but you do whatever works for you. So I'm going to finish coloring him up, all of the little black areas, and then on the lighter areas of the tail, I did leave a little strip, and I went back in with the C3 and, just kind of filled that in. There isn't going to be much light on that tail just because of the layout that I picked for the card. In order to make it make more sense, I'm going to go over the part outside of the circle with some BBs. I tried a BB02 first, and I felt like it wasn't dark enough. So then I went back in with an 04 and did it again, and I felt like that matched the background much better and set his tail back, really giving that appearance of that spotlight. I'm going to color his little money bag green. I think traditionally, like, they're brown, but I wanted a little pop of color, and money is green, and here, at least in the US, money is green. So I just went ahead with some bright lime greens, and that's also, it's a fun color for Halloween, like bright oranges and purples and lime greens. So in order to bring that in, I was happy to do it because I love me some bright colors. For this little bear, okay, so I think that his intention was to be a fairy, but I didn't see him that way. I wanted him to be a bee. And so I just made his little belly where there was already like a little circle delineation for what his belly would be. I just colored his belly like little bee stripes because I thought it was cute. Like bears, honey make from bees. Anyway, I thought it was adorable. But you can color yours as a fairy. There's lots of little things that he could be and still be completely adorable because, well, the stamp's completely adorable, so it'd be kind of hard to make him ugly. I forgot to show you the yellows I was using. I apologize. Please always know that if you're watching on YouTube, the list of supplies is always below in the description, and if you are watching on my blog, there's a link up as well. I make a lot of videos, and sometimes I just forget that part because I get so involved in the actual coloring because I enjoy it so much, especially when it's something that is this involved. It's a very involved card. So I opted to go with some cooler browns. The whole card, has a very cool feel to it with all those blues and purples and blacks. So I just decided I was going to embrace that. I wasn't going to fight it. There's very little warm to be had in this card. I always like when I'm coloring bears or dogs, anything with like a little snout. I prefer to add the shading behind the snout so that it makes it look a little more elongated. And then, well, there's not going to be a ton of shadows because he is in some super bright light. There would be some under his arms, where his arms are folded over his little belly. And that's the only part where I added the darkest part of the shading. Everything else was really just to give him some interest so he wouldn't be completely flat color. But the light source is directly at him. So in real life, there probably would not be a ton of shadows. I just wanted him to have some texture. And he was really simple to color. I mean, wasn't a ton to it. And then for the little bunny Dracula, again, I had mentioned earlier with that I love bright colors, and so I wanted to bring in just a little bit of purple. So I decided to make the inside of his cape purple along with his bow tie, and so that way it looked like he had a little liner. Like he's a very trendy bunny Dracula and has, purple lined capes, because that's cool. So I'm just adding that little bit of shading. It's not a big deal, especially with the bow tie. It's a small area. If you're concerned that you can't do that without getting some bleeding, then don't. It's really not that big of a deal. It doesn't make that big of a difference. You ever just get in the habit of something and then you just can't break it? That's me. So I color everything with anywhere between 3 and 4 colors. So to not do that, I feel like I've left something unfinished. That's my own personal flaw. I really don't think that it would make that big of a difference in the card. I don't think anybody would even notice that I hadn't done that. So I wanted him to be a white bunny. So I'm using just a C1 and a C3 to color his actual body. And then I'm going to go back in with those same C's that I used for the raccoon to do his little widow's peak, his vest, and his cape. I don't show them to you every time because I'm using the same markers over and over again. So again, those supplies are listed. You know where to find them now. So I colored that all in with the C5, and then I'm just going to add in some very little shading with the C7, and then of course the 100, which is actually black. For a long time, I colored black without ever owning a black marker. So if you have the C's, it's still totally possible to achieve a black on your card. The reason I bought the 100, I guess, was just for those little teeny tiny areas where I feel like I could bump up the contrast, but it is by no means necessary. Don't feel like you have to buy that one if you don't own it. So I'm going back in with the C3 and I'm adding some shadows around that circle just to his white parts, because I didn't want him to appear not white, and I didn't want to just put the purple right over top of it. So I'm going to finish coloring up his vest, and then I called it purple, but it's actually blue violet. So I used the BV02 over the white parts, and then I used the BV04 over just that little corner of Widow Peak that's sticking out, and his cape, since the BV02 wasn't nearly enough to give it a purple cast. Here is the fun part with the ghosts. So I'm using white wink of Stella, and this gives them like this gauzy see-through look that's really awesome. It's almost like a little bit of frosting. This will be great for winter cards. I didn't own a white one last winter, so I'll be very interested to see how much I use it come this winter. But it really just blends everything together super nicely and gives that appearance of being see-through for the wings. So if you don't have one, maybe pick one up and try it. So since I was going with the whole play theme, the ghosts would obviously not be flying on their own. So I'm using my writing pen to go ahead and add some strings to both of the ghosts and the bear. So it looks like he is a little bee that is flying. I just thought it was just a really cute idea and just something different. And then I added some white highlights to the string that would be in the spotlight. I also added some to the top of his wings and then each one of their noses. The last thing I did with my white gel pen was I added some stars in between the trees. I felt like the area was just kind of blank and it needed something. And I thought that this would be something that would be super cool to just add some interest. So once I was done with that, I did a white heat embossed sentiment from the same set. I didn't show that in the filming. I didn't think it was necessary. If you need to see white heat embossing, I have plenty of videos that include it. And then I drew in little starbursts in the background, and I glued in some small sequins from one of Pretty Pink Posh's newest. They actually came out with this release, with this October release, and that one is the Winter Sparkle mix, and it's beautiful. It's got a lot of pretty blues and pinks. I am adding enamel essentials from Ranger to their eyeballs, and you can see it kind of pulls on the end, so I keep a scrap piece of paper nearby just so I can wipe it off, but I really felt like you couldn't see that raccoon's eyes, so I wanted to give him something to help it pop out, and it's just a cool little something to add. So that's the entire card. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back here shortly with another video, so I hope you guys will join me then. Thanks. Bye.